Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Doctor, mashallah, welcome, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamu rahmatullah. So, Doctor, may we start now, inshallah?
Yeah, sure. Let me just open the slides and then we can start.
No problem. I will start and then I will invite you, inshallah. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyil ameen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een amma ba'd. Our respected lecturers, my dear brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, and today we do have our Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Iskandar Shah. We would like to welcome you all to this special session on sustainable finance and Islamic capital market, a broad-based discussion on the convergence of these two concepts. So, as you, most of you know that Nadal Iqtisad Islami, Islamic Economics Associations promotes a Sharia-based and Sharia-compliant standards and also models through organizing lectures, workshops, training, and also some talks, which usually covers a wide range of areas in Islamic banking, Islamic microfinance, Islamic insurance, Islamic capital market, Islamic equity market. And also we do arrange some series of lectures and talks on some specific topics, including sukuk, retail and corporate banking products, practical contemporary issues, and so on. So a part of that, today we do have this special session with our Associate Professor Dr. Iskandar Shah. Let me introduce our guest speaker today, who is an Associate Dean of School of Graduate and Professional Studies at the International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, INSIF, a postgraduate university specializing in Islamic finance established by Bank Negara Malaysia National Bank. And prior to joining this INSIF, I think there is some voice noise. There was a little bit problem here. I think, can you hear me, Prof?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
So that I was introducing our professor today, who is also prior to joining in INSIF, Dr. Iskandar was an assistant professor at the Department of Finance, International Islamic University, Malaysia. And during his doctoral studies, he worked as a tutor at University of Nottingham and also as a lecturer at Nottingham Trent International College, United Kingdom. Prior to current administration position, he was the Dean of the School of Graduate Studies, Deputy Director of BNP Paribas Center of Islamic Asset and Wealth Management and Treasurer of Malaysian Finance Association. He holds a PhD in Finance from University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. He holds a Master's in Islamic in International Economics and Finance from University of Queensland, Australia. And of course, he obtained a Bachelor in Business Administration Finance from International Islamic University in Malaysia. Dr. Iskandar is a financial sector specialist consultant for World Bank and advisor for Brunei Institute of Leadership and Islamic Finance, Brunei. He is also an associate editor for Turkish Journal of Islamic Economics, International Journal of Islamic and Middle Eastern Finance, and Asian Academy of Management Journal of Accounting and Finance. So, Nadal Iqtisad al-Islami Bijamiat al-Kuwait, Islamic Economics Association, Kuwait University, is very much pleased to have Dr. Iskander today. And without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Iskander to conduct the lecture. Please welcome, Doctor.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Mohideen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Your name is, the pronunciation is very similar to our current Prime Minister.
Yeah, true.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think this is the first time I'm engaging in the lecture series with your association. I think I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity to allow me to share some of my thoughts as well. This is just, a sharing sessions. I wouldn't call this as a lecture series. We are trying to basically create awareness, understanding, and how we can exactly move forward together. I think that is the most important thing. So let me start my slides, and then we can proceed from there. Okay. Can you all see my slides?
Yeah, it's clear, Doctor.
Okay. And is it moving?
Yeah, it's moving.
Okay. So let me just okay. Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you so much for those who have joined these sessions. And again, thank you for the organizers as well. So as introduced by Doctor, my name is Muhammad Iskandar Shah. I'm from INSEF, and I'm sure you probably have heard about INSEF, an institute dedicated to Islamic finance. And we've been in existence for almost 15 years now. In fact, this year we are celebrating our 15-year celebrations. So it's a big year for us. And more importantly, we have evolved from a university that only dedicated to Islamic finance, but now we are also pursuing sustainability agenda as well. In fact, last year we have introduced a new program, MBA in sustainable business. So basically, whatever that I'm presenting to you is actually a team effort together with my students, Faisal, Hanis, and also Firman Shah, where they're able to translate some of the class discussions into a more presentable arguments, which I'm going to share with you today. Okay. So this is just an outline of my presentation. Before we go into capital market, which is a very common topic, I would like to talk in detail about sustainability. Perhaps create a platform, a context of discussions, and then I try to link to ICM as well. And so that will be the two part of the presentation. Try to see how we can adapt some of the guiding principle from sustainability, and then converge with the principle of ICM, and see how we can actually implement some of these policies with Islamic finance. All right. So before I go into these slides, right, I just want to basically bring your perspective and try to make you understand why suddenly people are embracing sustainability. I think that's very important. Not just because we are dealing with climate risk, just because we are not really looking at environmental per se, because that is a real risk. People can actually feel it. It's very tangible. You can see the disaster right in front of your eyes. You can see the world is actually warming up, and it's actually disrupting the ecosystem. The rise in the temperature make our food production less, it destroy our crops, for example. It makes the marine ecosystem, disrupt the marine ecosystem. So it's going to be very difficult for us to find food and protein in the future. So there are quite a number of challenges that you can see from climate risk. But the other risk that probably people are not really talking about is also the risk of inequality. Yes, it's a big debate, but unfortunately, there are not many agenda. For example, like in environment, in climate change, you can probably see that there's a COP conferences and committees to really look at how we want to deal with climate risk. Even in Malaysia, for example, we have started JC3, a joint committee with 3 big parties in terms of looking at how we want to address this. But unfortunately, people are not really looking at inclusion agenda or inequality agenda as big as the climate risk. So this is something that we all have to understand, is that how we want to find the balance between the two. So is it important? Is this going to be a new guiding principle? From my opinion, yes. Does that mean that we have to abandon the old guiding principle? No. So what I'm trying to say here is that whatever things that we are seeing today is just an evolution of the process. For example, let me just bring you an historical perspective. In the past, we always believe in terms of pushing growth. So we try to figure out what are the policies to push growth, to create jobs, to create employment, and so on and so forth. But today, it's not just about creating a job. It's basically creating a healthy job. It's basically creating a sustainable job with social security, so on and so forth. So in other words, we are not abandoning the old principle. We are just basically improving the old principle and trying to basically making it more impactful. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that in the past, if you want to contextualize my argument, in the past, we always look at the risk and return framework. But today, for example, we are looking at the risk, return, and also impact framework. So the moment you are trying to bring in the new element into your guiding principle, automatically your operational concept and also the model have changed as well. For example, the system of the governance have changed, because now you have to look at the climate reporting, of the climate risk reporting, for example, and impact reporting. So that is basically some of the changes that are taking place. And also the advancement of the technology make agenda of the sustainability become quite easier as well. So in other words, the world is actually moving towards finding a balance between a growth and also a balance, I would probably say that development. So that is basically very important. So the question that we always have to ask is that, what Islamic finance can do, or what role that Islamic finance can actually play in the context of this. Okay. All right. So if rather than going this thing into detail, again, this is just a definition, a concept of sustainability focusing on more profit, planet, and also people. What I'm trying to highlight here is that the moment you are trying to bring in a new dimension, the moment you are basically trying to argue that we should not be just looking at the dollar value or the value created from the business, we also have to look at impact, then automatically a lot of dimension change. A lot of way we do business also change. A lot of our principles in terms of dealing with our daily life also change. So for example, if I can give you example, those days, and we always say that we only create value when you produce something. So this is a basic notion. You only create value when you do something. But today there's a new concept. You can also create value without doing anything. For instance, if you just take a break from your work and watch TV for a couple of hours, reduce your stress and so on and so forth. Of course, on paper you are not doing anything, but actually you are finding a balance. So that balance can actually increase your health, increase your improve your immune system, and reduce your vulnerability to disease, and make you happier person, reduce mental distress. And how do you capture that? So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that whenever you bringing the idea of sustainability, sometimes doing nothing, it also add values. Let's say we don't destroy our ocean, so it add values. Okay. I'm not sure. There's one person keep raising hands. What is the format here? Do we just do the lecture first and then answer questions, or can Doctor?
Yes, doctor. Normally, we do lecture first, then we open for question and answer for half an hour.
But I'm not sure. There's one person that keep raising hands. So
I think.
Is
okay,
it?
can
I just continue?
Yes, no problem.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the moment you're embracing something, then automatically the way that you develop your concept change over time as well. And this is important. Why so? Because today, the more we do things, sometimes we're also damaging the ecosystem. And when we damage the ecosystem, then it can create more disruption. For example, you can create $20 billion of value, for example, by cutting down forests. But then you need to basically put in 30-40 billion dollars in terms of reforestations, because if not, by not doing so, you might not be able to sustain the climate risk. So this is where you find a balance between job creations and also ensuring the continuity and the sustainability, not just the planet, but also the people as well. So this is a new dimension. So now the question is that why these dimensions are important? Okay. Just give me a second. Okay. All right. So how do we look at these dimensions? Okay. So first of all, whenever we want to look at sustainability dimension, like I said again and again, all right, we have, first argument is that, we have to basically look at whatever we do in the holistic concepts. We have to see how does it benefit our stakeholders. Yeah.
Excuse me, are you running the slide? Because slides is not moving.
I'm on slide number 4 now. Is it moving from your side?
No, it's not moving.
Okay, this is always the problem whenever I do webinar. Slides stop moving. Okay. Is it moving now? It's moving from my side. Okay, let me stop sharing first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then let me start sharing again. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, is it moving now?
Now it's moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for all these technical things.
No problem.
After 18 months of webinars, we are still figuring out how to deal with technology. Okay. Okay. All right. So how do we deal with sustainability? So first of all, we need to understand is that whatever we do, the impact has to basically include all stakeholders. Including all stakeholders means that, first of all, it include direct stakeholders and also indirect stakeholders. Unfortunately, majority of the people, when they make decision making, they only look at their direct stakeholders, their vendors, their customers, their employees, so on and so forth. But the moment you apply the concept of sustainability, you probably becoming more holistic. But of course, whether that particular thing is material to you is a matter of subjectivity or a matter of relativity. For some companies, environment is more important. For some companies, the inclusion is more important. For some companies, for example, protecting marine life is more important. So this is where the idea of materiality comes in, for you to decide which elements is more important and which element is basically less important. And then obviously, this is where I think a lot of mindset requires some changes. People are start looking at going beyond business. But rather than just arguing what is more obvious, I just want to highlight that the moment you start looking at go beyond business, what is more important thing is that how the government can incentivize all this basically behavior. So again, you have to understand, whenever we come to the business world, they always look at what is the benefit to them. So sometimes the benefit can be incentivized through tax incentive, through a reward, for example, or through greater access to market. So this is where the government has to come in and try to create policy in harmony with the corporate agenda. Unfortunately, sometimes we find that there's always a tension between corporate agenda and also government agenda. But today, without collaboration, we are not be able to see a more holistic approach. And then the third one, which I think a lot of companies are really finding difficulty to adapt, is how to find a balance between a short-term reward and also a long-term reward. So if you probably remember in 2008 financial crisis, one of the main reasons why the crisis happened is that a lot of CEOs were trying to maximize their short-term return. So they were looking at maximizing their ROE. So what they do is that they borrow a lot, they take a lot of leverage, so on and so forth, because they want to maximize a short-term return. But what happened is that it created a lot of disruptions in the continuity of the business. So how do you incentivize the CEOs in terms of looking at long-term value creation? I think that is the most important thing, because you all have to understand, when it comes to economics, everyone behave according to the incentive structure. And incentive structure is actually decided at much higher level, which is the global, which is basically at the policy level. So that's why some countries, especially the European countries, were able to come up with the right incentive structure. Even the idea in Europe now, you should consume less. In Spain right now, people are talking about we should eat less meat. You know why? Because more meats are actually contributing to higher carbon emission. So now this idea that we should consume less, doing nothing is also creating value. Sometimes it looks like a paradox whenever you study a basic economic model or the standard economic model. But then when you reverse the arguments, when you say that maybe there is a rationality within irrationality, then you see it makes sense to you to look from a reverse perspective. And this is exactly what happening from the global perspective. People saying that, okay, let's not own a lot of things, let's have less, because by having less, we can actually contribute more to sustainability. So this is a dimension that coming in. But of course, it's very difficult to change the mindset, especially in our part of the world, because in our part of the world, you probably know that having more mean you are more successful. You have 2 cars mean you are more successful than people who have 1 car. You got 3 houses mean you are more successful than people who have 1 house. I always make joke, the more you have, the greater probability that you're going to be married in a good family. And this is a notion in our part of the world. But unfortunately, this notion somehow is not making much more sense in the context of sustainability. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here is that in order for you to push sustainability, you also have to have a shift in terms of your consciousness and in terms of your moral obligation. So whenever I talk about moral obligation, I'm not talking about what is morally right in terms of your behavior, but what I'm trying to say here is that you feel a sense of responsibility, not for this generation, but also for the future generation. And last but not least, the beauty about this sustainability is that you can measure those, all right? You can measure the impact. All these abstract ideas can be measured. For example, the availability of the fresh water, how much carbon emission, global temperature, how many people are dying because of hunger, so on and so forth. So those days, people do not really want to study economics because, and not many people say, oh, economics are very abstract. You always say, on one hand, you do this, on the other hand, you do this. Some people believe in Keynesian, some people believe in neoclassical economy. So some people believe in liberal thinking, so on and so forth. But today, the input of your economic thinking becoming less and less relevant, because the idea is that regardless of your input of thinking, what really matters is that what is the outcome that you produce. So it's not like, okay, you can use whatever policy tools, but the success of the policy tools can be measured if you are able to basically achieve a certain outcome. And that outcome has been outlined. For example, one of the guiding principles is the 17 UN SDG goals. And those 17 are being translated, if I'm not mistaken, more than 160 over KPIs. And as long that we can achieve those KPIs, because those KPIs has been designed not only to find prosperity in the current generation, but also to ensure the continuity and the sustainability of prosperity between the current generation to the next generations as well. So it's not that complicated, right? Even you have no clue what to do, just take the sum of this measurement and just implement those measurements, and then you can see the effect as well. But in order for you to do that, this is the challenge. You need to find a balance between the role of the government, the role of individuals as citizens, and then the role of the companies as well. So in some countries, the government is very proactive, giving a lot of incentive. But in some countries, they are not. Then it's the responsibility of the corporate sectors. But again, corporate sectors only respond to incentive as well. So how do you incentivize corporate sector? So it can be demand-based. The consumer demand that. For example, I will not buy a company that destroy Amazon, or I will not buy football from a country that use child labor. But unfortunately, in many parts of the world, consumer awareness is not there because people are not searching for information. So this is where there is a difference between a developed country maturity and also the developing countries. Because developing countries always use this argument that, oh, we are just developing, the cost of doing sustainability is very high and so on and so forth. But we have to understand one thing. If we don't embrace sustainability, the risk, the damage that you're going to do to our livelihood is enormous. And many people are not aware of this. COVID is a one of example where, a risk that arise due to climate risk. You know why? Because we destroy the biodiversity. The moment you destroy biodiversity, the animal become closer to human beings. And animals are being known to carry so many viruses. And you cannot stop that from happening. The only thing that you can do is that you can protect and preserve their biodiversity, so that we find a balance, a boundary between human life and also animal life as well. But the moment you start destroying that, so this is where the danger comes. So nobody can argue with me or with anyone that COVID is nothing. The damage that the COVID has done to the world is enormous, not only in terms of loss of life, but loss of confidence. A lot of business people after this will not basically have capital to invest because they have run out of their capital for saving to sustain their business, so on and so forth. So the only form of capital after this may be new debt, and some people may choose not to borrow anymore, especially the old business when they have no idea how to cope up with the new business. So this is where you can see that a lot of livelihood will be damaged because of this risk. So the thing that I want you to understand from the first section is that the point that I'm trying to make is very simple. Sustainability agenda is real. If any country fail to embrace sustainability agenda, they're going to be left behind. Of course, they will not be able to cope with global demand and also global practices. And failure to cope with the global demand and global practices means that your country or your institution will become isolated. And the moment you become isolated, you are no longer relevant. Okay? I can just give one example before I move on. Those days, we have a tension between communism and also capitalism. Some people choose to go for communism. Some people choose to go for capitalism. Right, but many countries eventually abandon capitalism, communism, including China, when Deng Xiaoping came to power. And the moment they have to figure out, I'm not saying that capitalism is perfect, but the moment they figure out the market power, they were able to develop the countries. And especially China today, they're able to bring up more than 900 million people out of poverty. So this is the power of a good guiding principles. So again, sustainability is also a guiding principle. So failure to embrace guiding principle will eventually lead us, not in the right directions. That's basically my argument. Okay. All right. So let me move on. Let me just take a short break, 1 minute. Dr. Mohideen, how long I have? 1 hour, right? Until 6 o'clock, right?
Yes, then we'll have some question and answers.
Okay, sure. I just need another 30 minutes. Okay, don't worry. Okay.
No problem.
All right. So, and then we can have Q&A after that for half an hour. Okay. So before I move on, I also want to make some argument that a lot of people say, that okay, we don't really need a guiding principles. Okay, we don't really need a new guiding principle. We just have to address some of the old problems within the economy. For example, information failures, imperfect competition, negative externalities, public good coordination. So in other words, we can stick to the same principles, but we just address some of the fallacies or the gaps in the old principles. Okay, yes, you are right. You can do that. But unfortunately, some of the weakness of the capitalism that we are seeing today, because you have to understand one thing, capitalism is built based on market power. Okay, so market power simply means that, you know, it will choose the right agent, it will choose the best agent, all right, and it will basically choose, you know, the right price, and then it will basically choose the right products, and so on and so forth. But the problem with that is that not everyone are capable of being the best agent, the right, you know, belong in the right group, so on and so forth. Especially when your capital start getting larger and larger, you have access to more resources. Okay, and then, you know, I can give you one more example. You know, asset prices, for example. A lot of people, they build value from asset prices, from properties, from shares, and so on and so forth. So these are all determined by the market. Yes, it's a true value. All right, if I say the property value is 2 million and someone is willing to pay 2 million, yes, it's a true price. All right, no one can argue with that. But unfortunately, if you let everything to the market power, then like what I said, you know, destroying ocean is also can be decided by the market power, because, you know, having 10 fish is better than having 2 fish. All right, or basically cut down forest, you know, economically might be a viable decision because you can sell more furnitures as compared to, you know, selling one furniture, because that's what the market says. And as long as there's a supply and demand, then there will be transactions. Okay, and if you can just address some of the policies, that is absolutely fine. But unfortunately, this policy that we've been using all this while cannot bring us to a better world. And the data doesn't lie. Okay, and probably you all know this. Right now, the target is about 2 degrees Celsius. They were trying to prevent from increment for more than 2 degrees Celsius. And after that, they said we cannot live with 2. We have to bring down to 1.5. Okay, we have to bring down to 1.5. Even better, we bring down even lower. Okay, so there's a systematic effort to reduce the rise in the global temperature. And you know why? Because rise in global temperature will destroy marine life, you know, will destroy the ecosystem. We'll have more wildlife fires. You know, we will have, you know, like what we have in Australia, and now even you can see in Turkey, or in America, in California, in the east, in the west coast of America, you can see a lot more, you know, fires happening, and that will even worsen the problem, because we need forests to decarbonize. Okay, so that's why when we bringing the sustainability agenda, there is an acceleration towards reducing carbon emissions. You know, electric vehicles, a lot of companies decided that they just want to go for electric vehicle by 2030 or even by 2040, so on and so forth. Reduction in hydrocarbon. And all these things came into place because people realized that we cannot just use the old principles. Okay. All right. So what are the policies to enhance or to redesign sustainable? Okay. So first of all, we need to create a new ecosystem, or the new framework towards sustainable development. So what are the developments so far that we can see? Is many things. People have come out with, you know, sustainable taxonomy, you know, what can be done in terms of improving sustainable agenda. People have come out with reporting for sustainable. You know, people have come out with a governance structure for sustainable. You know, and people are really looking at how sustainability can reduce risk, can improve pricing, and so on and so forth. So a lot of development are taking place. So this is not just an empty talk, oh, we have to create sustainable world, sustainable world. No. In Europe, for example, there's a huge investment and advancement toward creating all the required ecosystem towards embracing sustainable agenda. Because we cannot just depend on UN SDG. Okay, these are the goals, these are the measurement. Okay, because end of the day, it has to be a complete ecosystem. If I want to do this, the next question is, how am I going to do that? How am I going to be rewarded? How am I going to be incentivized? And so on and so forth. And then the second one, like what I said many times, we need to really relook at how we pursue economic growth. And I'm keep on repeating the same thing. We need to basically take into consideration many things in terms of our calculation of growth, including our preservation of forests. You know, for example, if you use electric vehicles, you get more points than using hydrocarbon. So you can have a typical GDP growth assessment at the same time, you can modify that GDP growth assessment together with sustainable investment. So now you have dual pillars. First, you have the pillars towards a typical economic growth, but at the same time, you also have a pillars toward achieving sustainable agenda. So in other words, how do you find the balance between the two? Because eventually I can prove to you that in the long term, there will be a causality between your sustainable agenda and also your economic growth. I can just give you one simple example. If you really promote the idea of reducing inequality, all right, you will have less social chaos. So when you have less social chaos, you're going to have more trust between the lower income group with the middle income group with the higher income group. And everybody knows this. The moment you build social trust, the political system works better. The implementation of the policies works better, and trust will eventually create harmony, and harmony will lead in terms of better integration and also social cohesiveness. Okay, and this is all important. And especially you can probably see now, a lot of people are going to the roads, to the streets and protesting. And it's not only happening in the least developed countries, it's happening in France, the Yellow Jacket movement. It's happening in America, for example, occupying Wall Street. And even you probably know Brexit. Why Brexit happens, even though everybody knows that, economic integration is the best form of welfare maximization. Why? Because there are a group of people who are so frustrated because they are not being given the opportunity to embrace or to be part of all the value that being created in the economy. So this is where I think we have to really look at how we pursue economic growth. And then the other thing is that we also have to decouple environmental pressures from economic growth. Okay, what I'm trying to say here is that we have to ensure that there is not much damage to the environment because we want to pursue our economic agenda. And this is also relevant to Malaysia as well. Our palm oil industry, our marine industry, our forestry industry, so on and so forth. Maybe we should come up with a policy for every tree that you cut down, you have to plant 10 trees, for example. All right. So we will multiply the numbers of trees because everybody knows that, forest is the best weapon and towards, neutralizing all these carbon emissions. All right. Because we can't live without carbon. It's very hard to go into zero carbon. There will be some elements of carbonizations, but so how we can neutralize this? Forests. We don't have to develop the entire city. We can develop one part of the city and we can create a forestation in another part of the city. So every city should have one forest. So that forest will actually neutralize all the carbon emission that being contributed by the populations. So in other words, forestation is not an empty value proposition. Forestation also contribute to multi-trillion dollars industry because we can pursue our economic agenda without worrying about carbon emission because we know we have elements of neutralizations. So this is all important. Okay. Without understanding this, we will not be able to create a better policies. Remember, my session is just sharing. I'm just trying to tell you or share with you some of the recent development as well. And last but not least, as I said, everybody in the past always look at financial capital. All right. Always look at human capital. All right. In order for us to grow, we need three elements. That's what Robert Solow taught us. We need human, we need financial capital, and we need technology. All right. And this is all old model. The new model, we need human, we need capital, financial capital. We also need technology, but more importantly, we need trust. We need to integrate within the society. We want people to believe in one common agenda or finding one common purpose. All right. Because end of the day, if you study history in the past, okay, let me digress a bit and try to explain to you. If you study history in the past, human beings is always about survival. People go to war because they want to survive. People conquer another region because they want to show dominancy. All right. And why they want to show dominancy dominance? Because that they believe that this is their form of survival. All right. And some people pursue wealth because they believe that the more wealth they have, basically it will increase the chances of the survival. So in other words, this idea of having more comes in because you fear somebody will take it away from you in the future. So you have to be stronger, you have to be more powerful because you don't trust the other party. Okay, you don't trust basically your ecosystem. Okay, because this is what the kind of world that actually we've been living in the past. Even, I mean, we don't have to go far. You just take European Union. In the past, there were so many conflicts that lead to the First World War and the Second World War. But after that, for some reason, they realized that, fighting among us will never bring us anywhere. So they tried to cooperate, as much as they can. And they also have brought it to a different level until they have a common currency. Of course, we can debate about that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the moment they start to cooperate, the moment they start to build trust among each other, let me ask you one simple question. Which continent where people can travel from one country to another country without passport? Only in Europe, not in ASEAN. I'm from Malaysia. Even for us to go to Singapore, we have to go through 2 immigration. All right. But in Europe, you can actually go from one country to another country even without stamping your passport. Why is that? Because they trust. They have higher level of trustworthiness. And now it's Olympics, right? And if I can digress a bit, I have another 15 minutes. Don't worry, I don't have that many slides anyway. If I can share with you, in Olympics, everyone will say, you see, look at all the European countries, Germany is doing well, France is doing well, Italy is doing well, even Russia seems to be doing well, Australia is doing well. Why so? Because when you grow up in this country, if I become a sportsman or even I become a sportwoman, my success will be rewarded by my country. So they trust the system. But if you don't trust the system, you will not take up sports. Okay, yeah, you might take up sport because you want to migrate and play football in EPL or whatsoever and everything. But you will not stay in your country and play for your country. So this is a difference between a country that have a higher social capital with a country will have a lower social capital. And because of higher social capital, sustainability agenda become easier to implement in those countries as compared to country where we have a lower social capital. You know why? Because to implement sustainable agenda, you need to make sure that everyone or collectively people are doing it. Because if not, you're going to have a free rider problem. For example, if I just go and not throwing my toxic waste, for example, I do it properly, it will increase my cost. So in a country where, why should I do it, right? My competitor is not doing it. So if I do it, he will make more money than me. So you don't trust each other. So you worried about the free rider problem. But when a country have a higher social capital, you will trust the system. Whatever good things that you do will be rewarded. But again, trust me, I'm not saying that we have to live in the perfect world. Okay. But what I'm just trying to say here is that sometimes we have to ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing or not? So we can see a country that do better things will generally have a better life. This forum, I'm sure there are many Muslims students are watching. There are so many Muslims out there who are dying on the daily basis because they have to cross the sea to Europe. From Morocco to Europe, from Libya to Europe, they're crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Europe, and many of them lost their lives because they just want to better their lives. So whatever and why this thing is happening in the first place, right? Why can't we create opportunity in our own country? So this is a question that we all have to answer. So the last point I'm trying to make is that there are two more points, and let me finish my presentation because I don't like to speak too long. You will get tired and bored of me. So 1 hour I think is quite ideal. And this is the slide I've used in the past, and I just want to make one point. You can see from 2012 and 2018, apology for the outdated data, but that's not important. I just want to make a point. How fast ESG has grown very rapidly, very quickly. Today, for your information, the value of ESG is about 80 trillion US dollar, more than that if I'm not mistaken. Islamic finance is still 3 trillion. So it's not that people are embracing sustainability because they like the word sustainability. No, because they know how important it is, the consciousness and so on and so forth. And the other reason why sustainability is more easier to embrace because it's all about positivity. Or you need to do this because this thing will happen. You need to do this because this thing will happen. So it's very easy to explain about positive things as compared to explaining something which is very abstract. Okay, so and the principle is easy to understand. Taxonomy is easy to understand. Okay, you can do this, you cannot do that. And why am I saying this? This is where Islamic finance have to move towards simplicity, harmonizations. All right, we are debating so much on the meaning. What is riba, for example, and we are arguing on all tiny matters. We always love to do that. So when we are becoming so obsessed with less material things, what happens is that it creates complexity. And complexity is the enemy of decision making. So what I'm trying to say here is that we have to make Islamic finance simple. That means whatever complex process that happen at the back end is not the worry of the common people, it's the worry of the experts. So the expert must be able to translate this thing into simplicity and becoming a guiding principle. And that guiding principle is not just about, okay, you cannot do this, but more importantly, create something like taxonomy where when you do this, this will happen. For example, we keep on telling people, oh, do resharing. When you do resharing, things will become better. But maybe we need to start looking at, okay, what are the outcome and what are the impacts of doing resharing? Okay, so if you do resharing, okay, this measurement will go up, for example. So by doing that, by learning from the sustainability principles, which is material, which is not, which have a greater impact, which is not, so on and so forth, I think Islamic finance will become a lot more simpler, a lot more easier, and Islamic finance can move towards certain principle which is propagated by sustainable agenda. Remember, I'm not saying that, okay, we should abandon whatever we are doing now. I'm just saying that let's tweak it because I don't see anything wrong with sustainability agenda from Islamic perspective, because it promotes equality. It tries to basically create a balanced society. It doesn't destroy, trying to basically create a better world, better planet, so that people become healthier. People do not know this. Sometimes it sounds very simple, but not many people know this. Because of this pandemic, right? Many people die because of the lungs, because our lungs are not healthy. But do you know why our lungs are not healthy or not? Because it's a respiratory disease. All right. So it's all got to do with our, environment, the air that we are breathing, and our immune system depends on our stress level, and you probably know this in many parts of the world, especially in poor country. This is not what I say. This is said by a famous economist, a Nobel Prize winners, Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee. You see, one of the reasons why people becoming more and more stressful in life is that because they have to make so many decisions in life every day, where to eat, where to get money. So when you have to make so many decisions in life, then your life becomes so stressful. So stressful means that it will reduce immune system, and you become prone to disease and so on and so forth. So I'm not saying that this is the reason, but what I'm trying to say here is that everything that we do is all related. So you cannot solve one problem without looking at the others. Okay, it's not easy, but this is where our job as a smart people or as a learned people, whoever been given some level of wisdom by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, to think about how we can actually create a much more holistic policy. Even we do not know how to create holistic policy, we just copy. Many countries are doing it. And people always talk about governance. So important governance, but unfortunately majority of the Muslim countries are very corrupt, and it's mind-boggling, right? On one hand you say Islam is all about honesty, and then on the other hand, majority of the corrupt countries are actually Muslim countries. So how are you going to implement sustainability if you don't even have a proper governance? Because sustainability require transparencies. Sustainability require more detailed reporting. So how you want to implement that if you don't have a proper governance structure? So my argument is that it's all start with us. We have to decide what we want in life. We have to decide what kind of person that we have to be in this world. Because we cannot be contradicting ourselves. We cannot say, okay, I want to serve Allah, but then I want to basically go for material wealth. I want to be a good Muslim, at the same time, I'm going to be a corrupt person. So we have to take this issue of governance very seriously, because everybody knows when a country that have a poor governance, the whole ecosystem will be disrupted. And this is not only happening in many parts of the world, this is also happening in my country as well. How difficult it is to even implement some policies when you don't trust the governance structure. Okay, and this will have long-term impact and also consequences to our ability to compete with the global market. I always tell my Malaysian friend, you guys are sleeping. China economy will double in 10 years time. They can produce anything at a cheaper cost because they have the technology, they have the resources, they have the market. So if you are not able to compete with them, we will become less relevant. So then don't complain when you become less relevant, because your inability to pursue the right policies. Okay. So last but not least, if I can just conclude my presentation to tell you that, in order for you to pursue sustainability agenda, you need to shape the market. Okay, you cannot let the market to form by itself. Okay, you need to decide what is the best for the market. Okay, so if I can just quote what Prof. Maria Mazzucato, one of the famous person who pursues sustainability agenda. So Prof. Maria said, one of the reasons why we are enjoying so much of technology in this world, because we decided to pursue big technology, like, space exploration, Mars exploration. And because of the space exploration, there are 30 spillover technology. Okay, because if you leave it to the market, nobody will go for space exploration in the 1950s, because NASA will never make money. Maybe now, because the technology become cheaper now, even Jeff Bezos can go, Sir Richard Branson can go, because the technology has become viable and cheaper now. But it wasn't like that in the 60s and the 50s. So space exploration is one example of market shaping. That means you don't let the market to decide, but you shape what the market is all about. Okay, and this is where I think the Muslim leaders have to come in and say, we will decide how we want to shape our market, what kind of policy that we want to implement, what kind of technology that we want to pursue, what kind of education that we actually want to basically build, and so on and so forth. Because without we decide how the market gonna be, we will never unlock the market power. Okay, the same example that China did, they decided to keep the Communist Party, but they want to embrace market economy. I think Deng Xiaoping famously said, it doesn't matter whether it's a black cat or it's a white cat as long it eats rats. All right, it catch the mouse. Sorry. Okay. So this is the kind of thinking. You need to shape what is the desire of your people and of your country. And sustainability is just a one way to shape the market. Okay. But Alhamdulillah, in Malaysia, for example, if I can just straight away go to this. So this, let me, okay. Because I'm running out of time. In Malaysia, for example, we have some policies towards sustainable agenda. The question is it enough? Are we doing enough? Maybe not. Okay, because in order for you to do sustainability agenda, it's not only you have to create incentive, but you must also have the technology. You cannot just keep buying the technology. You must also produce the technology. In order for you to produce the technology, you need human capital, you need financial capital, and so on and so forth. But do you have the ecosystem and the framework? Yes, but we are not there yet. But at least we have started. But we have to accelerate the process, especially because of this pandemic. It's very clear some countries can sustain the pandemic because they have a better digitalization, they have better internet access, they have a better healthcare. So countries which don't have a good healthcare, good technology, and so on and so forth, find it very difficult to cope with the pandemic. I don't want to discount my own country, but I can tell you Malaysia also struggling to control the pandemic. Why is that the case? Because we are not there at the frontier of technology. A lot of people ask me, how come Korea can control? How come Taiwan can control? How come China can control? It's all technology. Contact tracing. It's all technology. It's all about using possibility, probability. And I can tell you this, quantum computing will speed up all the algorithm and will all the calculations. So with that, you can calculate the probability. You can see how the pattern of the virus spreading, who are the most highest as the risk, and so on and so forth. So with limited lockdown, or with the partial lockdown, or with the designated lockdown, you can control the virus. So, and this is the power of the technology. So because to treat the pandemic or to overcome the pandemic, it's not just about the vaccination. It's also about isolation. It's also about treating. And it's also about your response time. Because if you can curb the virus within 1 day, as compared to 2 days, because by 2 days, the virus will spread. And it will double. And then another from 1 to 2, 2 become 4, 4 become 8, and so on and so forth. But if you can curb the virus within a single day with your contact tracing technology, so you can reduce the virus exponentially. And this is why some countries were able to control the pandemic successfully, because of the algorithm contact tracing, and that require the power of computing, quantum computing, cloud, data storage, algorithm, AI, so on and so forth. So now the question is that where are we in the context of all this technology, especially the Muslim world? So my argument is that, so if I can end this by saying, I'm not trying to tell everybody that, okay, sustainability is the solution. No, what I'm trying to say here is that we need to really look at the success of sustainability agenda. It's very successful, by the way. We cannot argue with that. The market shows that it's very successful. More than 80 to 90 trillion US dollar. Many countries like Norway, Denmark, and everything are really big in terms of pursuing sustainability agenda. Okay, and then if we can bring in the Islamic finance agenda, which is very clear, to bring, benefit to the people. Even the Maqasid is all about protect wealth, protect, life, progeny, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's very clear, right? Sustainability is also intergenerational argument. So the same thing, progeny is also intergeneration as well. And it's very easy. So we don't even have to debate on all these tiny things. We have to find commonality, and then we have to push the agenda. And then eventually people can see the value of it. And once people see the value of it, people will invest in it. But in order for you to invest, you need regulation, you need technology, you need human, and then you need financial capital. But don't forget, the most important thing, you need trust. And trust can only happen when you improve governance, which means you have to reduce corruptions. So it all boils down to my main argument that we have to improve the entire ecosystem if we as a Muslim country gonna be successful. I know some of our brothers in the Middle East might say, oh, don't worry, we are very successful. True, you are very successful because now everything depends on hydrocarbon. Can you imagine the world when they stop importing fuel and gas and also oil because they don't really need hydrocarbon? So what will happen to all the Muslim countries who are depending on basically hydrocarbon industry? So don't you think that we have to change now in order for us to diversify our economy, in order for us to advance our technology, so that we can compete with the global players? So with that, Dr. Mohiddin, thank you so much for giving me opportunity. So I'm more than happy to answer any question if the participant have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. for well presenting the topic, mashallah, and also for addressing some new key concepts on the sustainable policies, as well as for presenting your thoughts and ideas on these recent developments. So we thank you very much, Doctor. And now we open the floor for our brothers and sisters who joined the session. If anybody has any question or any comment, or anybody would like to add any comment or any point, please welcome. Either you can raise your hand, we will switch on microphone and you can speak, or you can write your comment or question in question and answer section. So wait for any brother or sister for your question and answer, for question or for comment. Brother Yusuf Sulaiman Muhammad, I think previously also you asked the same question to get admission in any Islamic banking and finance in Malaysia or Kuwait University, in Kuwait University. So as we told you earlier, I think about 2-3 months before, that Kuwait University, you can apply online in Kuwait University, Jamiatul Kuwait, في كلية الدراسات الإسلامية والشريعة. So this is one of the options that you can apply via online. If you want to apply also in Malaysia, in Islamic Bank and Finance Institute of Islamic University Malaysia, also you can apply, or in INSIF as well. There is a website, so you can just go through a website and you can apply. Yeah, thank you. So someone asked, what are the 5 pillars of investing? So Doctor, if you can add any points to this question. Yeah, thank you.
What are the 5 pillars of investing? Okay. Obviously, I mean, the two fundamentals is, first we look at the risk, and then we also look at return. I mean, I think these are the two basic principles that all are, commonly known. But today we also want to look at impact, which is the third one. I think a lot of people are becoming more conscious of the impact. So people want to differentiate whether it makes a positive impact or negative impact as well. I think those are the third pillar that people are really looking at. But of course, the other two, I mean, I'm not sure whether they are 5 or 7, so on and so forth, but I'm just telling you from my own thoughts. The other things that we all have to understand is that investment is always about the debate between a short-term value creation and also long-term value creations. So there are people out there who are investing just for quick short-term value. Okay, I'm not saying that they are wrong. They're just taking advantage from the market movement. That's absolutely fine, because you're also going to create liquidity as well. But today, when we talk about sustainable investment, a lot of people are doing it and they find happiness from it. because they believe that, they are actually creating long-term sustainability and also long-term value creation. Because you must understand is that sustainability is a very difficult process, huge investments taking place. So you cannot just, okay, I want to invest today and then, because I can tell you, for example, in the past, if you want to produce energy using wind, it's going to cost you, let's say, $1. Okay. But today, after 20, 30 years, it might only cost you about 30 cents. Okay. So the cost has come down tremendously over the years. So sustainability investment is not for somebody who just going into the market and wants to make a quick buck. So I would probably say that the fourth pillars from my own perspective is that I try to look at where we can get a long-term value creation. And then the last one, if I can share with you, is that when we talk about investment, it's always about whether the country or the company or whatever you're looking at it, is that whether they have a so-called proper governance structure or not. Because it's proven when a company have a proper governance structure, many of the decision making are basically trustworthy and can contribute to the long-term impact of the company. So I would personally look at these 5 elements, and then I would actually make decision based on these 5 elements. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. Now we open the microphone for some brothers who raised hand already. Brother Salam, welcome, brother. Thank you.
Well,
please, you may ask.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, sorry. I thought about
yes.
Sorry.
Never mind, son. Well, Assalamu alaikum. I'm really very proud to hear this lecture and this presentation. God bless you all. This is very important, for I am specialized in economic thought generally, and especially at the Islamic economic thought. It is very important to hear this information in such a way that it will lead our, as you can say, our thinking, our motives, and our also transactions to the real life. Because sometimes we have many, as you can say, this understanding between the economists and especially about the Western view of the people who have the Western view thing, and also for us. It is very important to hear that it is these things that the Prof. Muhammad had led to the to our, as you can say, to our interests. It's very important, and in such a way that we will lead for this again. I am sure it is very important. As it is important, we also need to return it back many times for more lectures in this direction, and I'll be proud to be participated in hearing this and to get more available information in my for my scientific life and my research. It is very important, and thanks for God, thanks for you too for this. And I am very proud to be one of your, as you can say, audience in this lecture.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad that you benefited from this presentation. But I think I agree with you as well, that our thoughts and our way of looking at informations and also processing the problems has to be improved.
Yes. Yes, very important.
Because the results are showing that whatever we are doing are not enough. I think that's very important. If you analyze, for example, the situation of the Muslim countries, many of them are not able to enjoy social mobility. In fact, the life of the children are not even better than the life of the parents. In many countries, for example, You take Iraq, for example, or Syria, or even Lebanon now. The opportunity that being provided to young people are less than the opportunity they had before. So this is where we actually try to look at, okay, what can we do about this? But the moment we're trying to ask this question, what can we do? We need a guiding principles. And of course, a lot of people will say, our guiding principles is Al-Quran and Sunnah and everything. Yes, we agree. But what is the hardest part is that how do we translate the complexity of our understanding of Quran and Sunnah and everything into a principle can be easily implemented at every level. Not only at the government level, at the corporate level, or even at the SME level, or even at the micro level. So this is actually, this is where I think a lot of people are not getting it right. For example, go on, sister.
The most important thing, it's from my humble experience, it's how to create a public opinion or a common sense about these things, because many of people till now, they are trying to ask me, what is Islamic economy, or is that something, as you can say, Islamic limits for economics? This is ridiculous. They are when they are saying for me, I am trying to explain. But if we are trying to create a special common sense about these things, that will also be something very important for our religious duties regarding our being Muslims, and also for it is kind of loyalty, as I regard it, kind of loyalty for our religious turn or religious duties, and also to our beliefs. This is very, very important. Even I am economist at the end, and especially I am writing in something about macroeconomic analysis and policies. But in the other side, I am Muslim, and I'm trying to bear these things, these variables, these concepts, to be very, very important and very, as you can say, available to the ordinary people, those who are trying to understand what is Islamic thought in economy.
True. I always believe in the power of simplicity. I think
this is very important. Agree with you.
I think there's a beauty in Islamic economics. The maqasids are very clear. But what we have not done is that we will not able to translate this maqasid into like something that what the SDG have done. How do we measure those maqasid?
Yes.
I think so. If we can do that and translate into simplicity, not just creating an impact, a measurement, but more importantly, show them how we can create that impact, then people will basically follow us. Because we keep on trying to go with a big argument, a very rhetoric argument, but this rhetoric argument can be only understood by very few people. Yes. Not easy. I mean, of course, we are having this conversation because we do understand what, history, Islamic economic thoughts, principle, maqasid is all about. But the moment you go out of the classroom and you start talking to the people on the street, how do you conceptualize those ideas, right? I think this is where the big challenge is.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
God bless you. God bless you, son. I agree with you, and I am proud to have such a generation like you and others thinking in that way. Thanks, God.
Thank you, Ustadha Salam, mashallah, for you. Some important and wonderful thought that you shared with us. And this is the way that Nadal Iqtisad al-Islami is going on, alhamdulillah. So we hope, we can create some common and also simplicity, as our doctor mentioned. We should have simplicity in this field as well, and also without any complication. So this is what we can see that the new generation and also new scholars like Dr. Iskander are working for creating more markets and more understanding, positive understanding among the Muslim young generation. And inshallah, we hope good in future, near future, inshallah. And thank you, Ustaz Dr. Umar Farooq, for your wonderful and appreciation. and as well as Dr. Hamid Umar. Shukran, Jazakallah khairan. So let's listen to others. I can see here some other my brothers and sisters raised their hand. Brother Ahmed Al-Hadi. Welcome, Brother Ahmed. Brother Ahmed Al-Hadi. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Yeah. Welcome, brother. Ahlan wa sahlan.
Thank you, Dr. Mahdi, and very, very thanks to all of you and to Dr. Muhammad.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome, Ustad Ahmed.
Dr. Muhammad, regarding to our Islamic countries, the poor countries in Asia and Africa, like Iraq, Yemen, Syria, and some other countries, the education system is very low, and they are far away of what the things that you are explaining now. So can you advise us how we do as our duty to educate the peoples? What is the first 2 or 3 steps to educate the peoples in the university stage or the high school to learn them about the new economic now going in the world? What is the first 2 or 3 steps that we can start learning or educate our society?
Okay. All right. Let me answer that question as well, because as an academician, I'm also very passionate about human development. So when it comes to educations, right, we cannot run away from 5 basic principles. The first one is the contents. So nowadays the beauty is that the contents are available. So we can always use the best contents in terms of educating our children. So of course, sometimes, it's quite difficult for us to get the contents, but this is where collaborations among the countries are very important. If there's one thing that we should share, is actually knowledge, because you cannot hide knowledge, because wisdom has to be shared. So for example, at INSEF, we always believe that we want to produce the best contents in Islamic finance and try to give it to others, or let the other institution replicate our contents. Because without sharing contents, I think there's no point of pursuing any research or any work, because it's all about sharing contents. The second important things when it comes to education is actually the delivery process. Okay, so this is where I think young scholars or anyone has to basically take this effort of webinars and even this YouTube and everything, and try to come up with a simple topics, maybe a 5 to 10 minutes videos, and make it a structured presentation of the contents. For example, I can speak like about 5 minutes about what is materiality matrix, or another 5 minutes about taxonomy, or another expert can talk about 5 minutes on this. So there must be a systematic effort to translate these contents into delivery. Okay, because today we cannot deny people opportunity just because they don't have access to good school. Because if they don't have good teachers, then the technology will make them, will become the enabler in terms of, accessing to good teachers. So this is where my third point, which is the technology. Unfortunately, we are not investing enough in technology. Okay, we are not sharing access to technology. So I think this is very important. Today we can have this webinar because of technology. So why don't the young people have access to the best lecturers from technology? Okay, so this is, I think, the third important pillar. The fourth important, I think, when it comes to education, is actually the assessment framework, or what we call as how we monitor the progress of our kids. Okay, this is where we can learn from some of these universally accepted education, like A-level and O-level or Cambridge and so on and so forth. I always wonder this, how come we don't have this in the Muslim world? Why we don't have this globally standard assessment criteria in the context of the Muslim world? Why don't we think about that? all right? So that we have one standard which is universally accepted in majority of the, let's say, in the Muslim countries. And that standard has to be as good as, for example, the global standard. So you cannot say that, you know, Allah give us 2 billion people, and out of these 2 billion people, none of us can do standard like that. You know, it's impossible. Am I right? No, it's impossible, right? So I'm sure we can use the power of minority to change the majority. So this is what I believe. It's not about the numbers. It's about harnessing the energy of the minority to empower the majority. But you must choose the right minority. Okay. Unfortunately, right now, in the many parts of the Muslim world, we are not choosing the right minority. The best people are not leading the majority. And we have to change that. Okay. Unless we change that, there's nothing that we can do about all these poor countries. They will always remain poor. Okay. So, but now the beauty is that with the technology, they have escape route. For example, if they cannot go to school, maybe we can think about, you know, accessing technology so that we give them an alternative form of learning. And these are the 4 things, which is the fundamentals. The 5th thing is, of course, I cannot emphasize enough, because I believe in the most important thing, that we are created in this world to serve. Only to serve the Almighty. So we need to come up with the principle to every one of us, is that we are serving, but we are not accumulating. But unfortunately, in many parts of the Muslim world, and sorry to say, majority of our leaders is that we say we are excited about Islam, but what we do, we accumulate wealth. We accumulate glory. You know, we think that by having more wealth, you know, we are being glorified. But then if you go back to history, you know, all the greatest Muslim leaders in the world, Khalid al-Walid, Sa'ad Abi Waqqas, or even anyone, all right, they don't accumulate anything. They serve, all right, but then they are being glorified by God, by Allah Ta'ala. Until today, we will remember Khalid al-Walid. Until maybe the Yawmul Qiyamah, people will remember him. But he doesn't have anything. He only had the one sword, and that's the only wealth that he had before he passed away. So my argument is that the mindset of us has to move from accumulation to serving. And if we do that, then there's a future for the Muslim world. If not, you know, I'm from a university called UIA, my first degree. So every Friday prayers, we will make dua for the Muslim world. So when I started, we only made dua for the Palestine. And then we made dua for the Iraqis, and then for the Syrians, and then for Afghanistan. I think the Imam got so tired, and then suddenly they say, fi kulli makan. You know, so I'm sure you understand the meaning of fi kulli makan. That means everywhere. All right. And now Lebanon into crisis. Okay. So who's next? Yemen into crisis. Yemen is one of the most beautiful country in the world. Yeah, into crisis. So who's next now? You know, Libya into crisis. You know, Egypt went through a big crisis. Now Tunisia is going through crisis. Algeria had crisis for 20 years. Now they are formed stability, but not so stable as well. The only country that left now may be Morocco. All right. So who's next? The question now in the Muslim world that we are asking is that who's next? All right. So why? Because from my point of view, we have a wrong worldview. So we have to correct the worldview first, and then automatically it will come. My apology, I answer this way, but to answer your question, brother, we still have to go back to the basics, and the basics are very clear: standard, technology, and let the minority decide the standard and the technology and everything, and then spread it to the majority. But the question is, choose the right minority. That's all. That's all I got to say. Okay, Dr. Muhyiddin, I think we are maybe one more questions, and then we can end the sessions. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor, for addressing some important points. I think brother already got the points. Inshallah, may Allah make it easy for us, for Muslim world, inshallah. Doctor, there is a question from Sister Fatima. Are there in Quran tools to shape our Islamic economy, and could Islamic economy compete with the capitalism?
No, I think whatever principles in the Quran, I think is very simple. Like what I've argued just now is that, you know, whenever we read Quran, right, I'm not an expert, right? But I do read Quran and I also try to understand Quran. So basically, if you look at some of the verses in Quran, you know, when Allah said that victory is only given for people who are honest and sincere, you know, and don't worry, you know, I will take care of you, I will reward you, you know, just do the right thing, and so on and so forth. So in other words, for me, every verses in Quran is actually trying to tell us that, you know, our responsibility in this world is just a custodian, a guardian of making things better for the future generations. Okay, so our economic thoughts and our economic principle should always believe in the fact that we preserve, we manage, and then we transfer the responsibility to the next generations. All right, and in order for us to simplify this, we have this concept of makasih. All right, protect of health, you know, wealth, you know, progeny, life, and so on and so forth. This is all basically derived from it. And if you study all the Muslim scholars in the past, Omar Chapra, you know, Tariqullah, all these big names in the, so they all arguing one common thing, that when it comes to Islamic economy, the worldview is being set based on the Quranic principle. So where do our generation comes in? All right, for example, like my generation and generation after, we need to take this idea of a different worldview and make it even more simpler, like what we had in sustainability. Okay, so this is where my argument is. Make it simple. So if you say protection of health, protection of wealth, how do we measure that? You know, how do we measure that? It's not easy, right? I mean, you can say, oh, you know, this, but it's quite complex. But this is where the research must be directed to, and once we do that, then things will be. And in fact, for example, right now, I just want to end by saying this: all this idea of sustainability, having less is better, is all Islamic principle. You know, it's all Islamic principles. You know, these minimalists, right? Oh, live with less. It's all Islamic principle. It's all stated in Quran. You know, this world is just temporary. Don't get too excited about it. You know, so every verse is basically trying to tell us how we should make decision, because economy is always about making decision. Economy is about a differentiation of what is rational and what is irrational. So you decide what is rational or what is irrational. But you can also use Quran as the guiding principle to decide what is rational and what is irrational. If you just say common economic principle, having 5 houses is rational. But if you take Quranic principle, it may not be rational. You got to share, and you have to basically make sure that your ecosystem is also living well as compared to you as an individual. So collective happiness is even more important. That's what the Quran says. We are one ummah, one people. So all these actually can be translated into a very simple economic principle. Okay, doctor, with that, I think enough for today. Okay, I thank you for the opportunity, and my apology for any shortcomings here.
No, thank you very much. Okay, distinguished guests, my brothers and sisters, Alhamdulillah, we just concluded this important session, and we hope that all participants benefited from this lecture from Dr. Muhammad Iskandar, who presented his thoughts and ideas and also policies and some very important recent developments points as well. So on behalf of Nadil Iqtisad al-Islami, Islamic Economics Association, Kuwait University, I would like to thank you all very much for your attendance, for your participation in this session. And our special thanks to Dr. Ustaza Ala Al-Ubaid, who is the Director General of this Nadil Iqtisad al-Islami, and all the management board members of the association. And our thanks on behalf of the family of Islamic Economic Association to our guest speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Iskandar Shah, for your time, efforts, and for your lecture today. We thank you very much, Prof. Inshallah, we'll see you again, maybe in other lectures, inshallah, in near future. May Allah bless you. May Allah reward you. And with that, if you have any last words, Doctor, maybe to our association, please welcome.
No, I think all of us have responsible to play. I hope the new generation of the scholars will not just focus on abstract ideas, but also translate these abstract ideas into much more meaningful implementation of policies. I think this is where the Muslim world need right now, good policies. And it's not only for the poor country, also for rich country. Even country like Kuwait, Qatar, or one day they will find difficulty the moment the world move away from hydrocarbon. So we need a policy of transition from hydrocarbon industry to more sustainable and diversified economy. So, and it has to start now. We cannot just blame our past. I think we have to move on and try to create a better world for us and hopefully for better for the coming generations as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we conclude today's session here. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى التوفيق والسداد والإخلاص والهدى والتقى آمين يا رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.